You can build your first highly available and scalable serverless application in just a few minutes, directly from Visual Studio Code. Let me show you how using AWS Application Composer. Before you start, you'll need developer access to an AWS account. You'll also need the AWS CLI and AWS SAM CLI installed and configured on your developer machine. Check out the video description for links to get started there. Finally, you'll need the AWS Toolkit extension installed in VS Code. The easiest way to explain Application Composer is to show it in action. As you can see, I'm starting with a totally blank project. The first thing I'll do is create a YAML file where the infrastructure as code will be stored. I'll call it My Serverless App. Application Composer works with the AWS Serverless Application Model, or SAM for short. SAM allows you to define your cloud architecture and application code in a single codebase, which means you can version control your architecture and revert changes easily if needed. SAM also has this adorable mascot, Sam the Squirrel, which is personally how I choose my infrastructure as code frameworks. After all, who can resist the charm of that cute little hard hat? I digress. The great thing about Application Composer is that you don't need to know a whole lot about SAM up front. In fact, it's a pretty great learning tool to get you familiar with infrastructure as code. Let me show you what I mean. To get started with Application Composer, just right-click on your YAML file and select Open with Application Composer. Now we can create a Hello World application using API Gateway and AWS Lambda. Simply click and drag the components you'll need to the interactive diagram on the right. We can associate this API gateway with this Lambda function simply by connecting the HTTP method to the function itself. As you can see, Application Composer has automatically created a folder where my function code will be stored. But before we write our Lambda code, let's take a look at our YAML file. Check it out! Application Composer has written our whole SAM template for us. This SAM template will create our API gateway and our Lambda function, as well as the associations and permissions necessary to connect them. It also enables tracing and logging by default. And whether we make changes here or in the interactive diagram, those changes will be reflected. So Application Composer and SAM are helping us define our infrastructure as code, including granular IAM permissions, logging, and tracing. These can be huge hurdles when starting with serverless, and this workflow can remove much of the tedium from serverless development. Still, it's super important to understand what's happening under the hood. If you want a deeper understanding, I highly recommend you check out our course catalog, where we have a ton of courses which cover IAM and serverless development from the ground up. Now let's take a look at that Lambda function code and return a response to our API. All we need for our simple Hello World function is a return statement including a status code and a response body. Then we can click over to Application Composer and click Sync to launch our application. Here we'll hit OK to confirm we're not overwriting a production stack, and we'll select the region and stack name to which we'll be deploying. Finally, we'll select or create an S3 bucket to store our template artifacts. This can take a minute or so, as SAM creates and executes a CloudFormation template to provision your cloud resources. I'll fast forward through this process. Once complete, we can find and copy the API Gateway endpoint and test it using a curl command. And here we can see our successful response. So that's obviously a very simplified introduction to Application Composer, but I'm sure you can already see how powerful this can be to help you quickly integrate serverless components while still taking advantage of infrastructure as code. You can also open any existing SAM template in Application Composer, which can help you visualize existing applications before you start working with them. Application Composer in VS Code is a new feature as of reInvent 2023. I'm super excited to see this technology continue to evolve and improve the serverless developer experience. If you want to see more of this type of content, please give this video a like and subscribe. It really helps us figure out what types of content you want to see more of in the future. So, What will you be building with Application Composer? And what should we build next? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Are you ready to take the next step in your tech learning journey? Sign up for free tech skills courses below.